achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we're taking a look at the upcoming UFC 181 event, which will take place on December 6th. It's a pay-per-view, and it's a fantastic pay-per-view featuring not one but two title fights in the lightweight and welterweight division. We had 2 weeks off between the last card and this card, so I had an opportunity to step back in, do a little bit of work on Kamikaze Overdrive Studios. So I'm getting back in front of the camera for this show. Let me know what you think of the overall studio effect. I can't do it every time, but certainly once in a while it doesn't hurt. I'm pretty excited. I'll be giving my 5 main card predictions for this event in this episode. All of my breakdowns for the preliminary fights will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. You can also go there and go to the public pick section and vote on who you think is going to win the fight to see who the rest of the public is picking. You can check out the rest of the prediction panel's picks, see what they have to say. They're doing a fantastic job. And certainly considering my buy my bet packs for $10, I'll be breaking in all these fights. I developed another trend, another scenario that cashed in over the last card. I fully anticipated cashing in as well here. So certainly look into that. I'm very excited for this event overall. We've got 5 pretty awesome cards, so let's get to that first matchup. We open the pay-per-view in the lightweight division as Tony Ferguson, 17-3-0, takes on Abel Trujillo with a current record of 12 wins, 5 losses, and a single no contest. And I'm taking a look at these two fighters. Neither guy's actually ranked in the UFC's top 15, but a win certainly could get them there, or at least get them a matchup with a guy ranked somewhere in the 10 to 15 market, and certainly give them the opportunity to break into that upper echelon of the division. Tony Ferguson overall has looked very good in his last couple of matchups since losing to Michael Johnson. He's had 2 stoppage victories and a split decision over Danny Castillo, which I was kind of shocked came down to a split decision. Castillo was fighting at home, though. For Abel Trujillo, similar situation. He's since his loss to Habib Nurmagomedov, he's won 2 fights and had a no contest in that same time span. He did have the Jamie Varner matchup, which he ultimately won, but certainly was not the most impressive performance. It was very entertaining. I'd say he was losing it right up until he won it. Both guys are capable of fighting both on the ground and the feet, but I anticipate a lot of the action here is going to take place on the feet, at least early on. Ferguson comes in with a great record of 9 wins and 0 losses in fights ended by knockout, including 3 wins in the UFC. For Trujillo, he's 5-1 when fights are ended in the same fashion. But his last 3 victories in the UFC have all come by knockout, so certainly he's coming into his own with his knockout power. Trujillo hits incredibly hard. He's very aggressive on the feet, averages 3.73 strikes landed per minute while giving up just over 2.5, so a pretty solid exchange rate there for a guy who's not known for being super technical with his striking. He KO'd Jamie Varner with a vicious right hand during kind of a lull in the action of what was a barn burner of a matchup that if you haven't watched, I implore you to go and check that matchup out. He's also very dangerous in close, and that's where you can do a lot of his damage. Very hard elbow shots, short-range punches, but his knees are very effective, and watch out for those in this fight. At range, he tends to run into his attacks. He throws a lot of single strikes, kind of keeps his head down, swings a little bit wildly, and he tends to attack in very straight lines. We saw Jamie Varner have a lot of success avoiding a number of attacks early on when he was technical before they kind of broke down into a brawl. And I think we're going to see Tony Ferguson try and anticipate that here as well. I also saw Trujillo react to a lot of fakes and feints in the last matchup and kind of tipped his hand off, and Ferguson can exploit that as well. That will be certainly an advantage to him. For Tony Ferguson, 3.75 strikes landed per minute, just over 3 absorbed, so not the greatest striking exchange rate, but he still comes in on top, and because he has power, he certainly relies on that. He's going to have a 3-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage as well in this matchup, so those are big positives for him in the striking exchanges. He tends to throw long, straight punches in combination, which will be a nice counter to what Trujillo does, more hooks and doesn't get a full extension on his strikes. We also see Ferguson use a lot of head movement, a lot of angles. He has better distance management. I think it's going to neutralize a lot of the power for Trujillo if he can keep him at range. We also saw Ferguson demo a lot of hard leg kicks in his last matchup. Did a nice job with the inside leg kick, also went to the body, and then again that could serve to keep Trujillo on his back foot and outside of his comfortable striking range. When Ferguson fought Danny Castillo, who tends to throw a lot of single strikes with power, Tony is able to see them coming, cover up, and deflect the majority of their impact, which is key to dealing with a guy who loads up on his strikes like Castillo does, and like Abel Trujillo tends to do as well. But one thing Tony needs to focus on is his defense. He tends to negate that or let it go a little bit in hopes of landing that big knockout blow and let guys land on him and expecting his chin to hold up. Against Trujillo, don't give him any more opportunities than he's going to get himself. You want to stay on top of him. Again, with Tony Ferguson, he doesn't use his wrestling as offensively as I'd like to see him do it. He's very capable on the ground, but he tends to rely more on his striking. What he does do very well is he will sprawl out of takedown attempts, and if you can get a hold of your neck, he ties it up with a headlock and will transition very quickly to a Darce choke, which he likes a lot. He has those very long arms and allows him to lock it up, and I think he could certainly threaten in this matchup here. He will make some positional mistakes in the grappling exchanges. We saw him against Castillo give up position, doing some wild and crazy things. And that's something, again, just like with the striking, do not give Trujillo added opportunities he doesn't earn to do damage. Don't give him top position. But Castillo was a better wrestler than Abel Trujillo is. So I don't anticipate seeing Trujillo on top too much, and I think Ferguson could be active off his back and get out of the position if that does happen. Trujillo really struggled with the wrestling of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he also was taken down by Varner and very much outclassed in the grappling exchanges. Ferguson's greatest advantage is on the ground, but I still think we're going to see, at least early on, we're going to see him attacking and throwing strikes and guys exchanging. I think Ferguson needs to remain technical, not get drawn into a brawl, keep Trujillo out of range, and I think we're going to see him land some strikes, force Trujillo maybe to shoot in and try and take him down. I think we'll see Tony maybe hurt him in a situation like that and eventually lock something up. So my prediction is Tony Ferguson to defeat Abel Trujillo by submission. Next matchup, we move up the scale for the first of two main card heavyweight battles. We see here the return of Todd Duffy with a record of 8 wins and 2 losses, taking on Anthony Freight Train Hamilton, who currently holds a record of 13 wins and just 3 defeats. Now, as I said, the return of Todd Duffy, he's coming into this matchup after a 2-year hiatus from competition, which was the result of an illness, a well-documented illness, and some injuries he had to deal with. For Hamilton, the same time span that Duffy since his last fight, Hamilton's fought 6 times, amassing a record of 5 wins and 1 defeat, which is pretty darn impressive. Physically, Hamilton will be 2-3 inches taller than Todd Duffy. Duffy's going to have about a 3-inch reach advantage. Roughly, they should weigh in the same area, but you never know with heavyweights. There's a lot of room for fluctuation there. Both guys have a very low average fight time. Duffy just short of 4 minutes and Hamilton just short of 6 minutes. So there's a very good chance we're not going to see this fight reach the judges. Duffy, he's only been over the first round twice in his career. He has a 1-1 record, never been to decision. For Hamilton, very impressive record in fights that do go beyond the first frame with a perfect 9-0 mark, including 5 decisions, which he started his career with. And certainly he's found his stop, his knockout, and his ability to land knockout blows since that run. But still, a very good weapon to have in your back pocket if you can win fights in the heavyweight division that don't get finished in the first round. Now, both guys have big knockout numbers. Again, not surprising considering how big they are. Duffy, all 8 of his wins have come by knockout. For Hamilton, 7 of his 13 victories have come by knockout. He also has he has 6 of his last 8 victories have come by stoppage. So pretty darn impressive. They're capable of putting their opponents away with their hands. Hamilton also has 1 submission, which came back in 2012. I don't anticipate that'll be a factor in this fight. For the defeats, they've all come inside the distance for both men. Hamilton's lost twice by submission, including to Alexei Oleinik in his debut. He was also knocked out by current UFC fighter Walt Harris, and that was in the matchup prior to both guys signing with the promotion. For Todd Duffy, he suffered 2 losses by knockout. His last one came against Alistair Overeem a couple years ago, and of course that very odd and shocking knockout loss to Mike Russo. If you haven't seen that matchup, please go check it out. And of course that Russo fight certainly brings into the question Duffy's chin and how his ability to take a big shot if it lands square. Now, we look at Hamilton first. He showed improved focus on his wrestling and his takedown skills in his last matchup, landing a lot of reactionary takedowns against Ryan Potts, eventually winning with ground and pound. But again, keep in mind, Potts didn't show much off his back or defending the takedowns, so take it for what it's worth in the fact that Hamilton was able to put him on his back so easily. For Todd Duffy, he'll be a different challenge for Hamilton to try and take down. He's shut down all 9 of Russo's takedown attempts. Russo, a pretty good wrestler back in the day. Philip DeFries did take him down once. He's a pretty good grappler in his own right, but Duffy is able to hop right back up pretty darn quickly in that fight. Hamilton tends to strike, though, on the feet with his head down, and that's where he's going to get into trouble here. He has an open guard. He swings very wildly. He did that against Oleinik, and Oleinik was able to crack him with some big shots that eventually led to the submission finish. He throws some kicks, but again, as I said, he swings way too wildly and is way too willing to open himself up with a very open guard. And for heavyweight, that is an absolute disaster waiting to happen. For Todd Duffy, he uses a lot more technical. He uses angles, mixes up his strikes far more effectively. He has a brutal right hand that he really will go to in succession if he gets the opportunity. He has a very nice uppercut that I expect him to sneak in there as Hamilton ducks his head when he looks to unload. He's pretty quick on his feet for heavyweight and uses a lot of movement. He can also fight at close range, and if he can create a small separation, he can land some big shots in the clinch and really open up and unload on his opponent. I also like the way he bullies his opponent around in the clinch, and that's something that we saw Hamilton struggle with against Oleinik, and I think he could be in trouble if Duffy can get his hands on him against the wall. For Todd Duffy, though, he needs to pick his spots. He, slowed down a little bit in that wrestle fight and that could have led to the knockout. He can't exhaust himself in search of the knockout loss. Pick your spots. It'll come. It'll come to you when the opportunity presents itself. But don't, throw your arms out looking to put the finish on. For Hamilton, that win over Potts it's a nice win to pick up in the UFC, but it's not over a UFC caliber fighter. I think we've well established that at this point. The layoff for Duffy is certainly a concern, but he has had this before and come back and looked fine. He seems like a very strong athlete, looks very physically, solid, far more physically impressive than Hamilton. Again, that doesn't mean a lot in the UFC, but still he's capable of coming in and doing a good job, I think, in this matchup. I think Duffy's going to land some big shots. He'll overwhelm Hamilton. But keep him backing up and eventually land that finishing blow. So my prediction is Todd Duffy to defeat Anthony Hamilton by knockout. To keep things rolling in the UFC heavyweight division is the number 3 ranked Travis Hoppa Browne, currently ranked with a record of 16 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw, battling Ultimate Fighter finalist Brendan Big Browne Schaub, who currently has a record of 11 wins and 4 defeats. Now both guys are coming off pretty significant losses. Individually and in the grand scheme of things, a little bit bigger for Travis Browne, but certainly both guys, coming off setbacks. Schaub lost a very unimpressive fight against Andrei Arlovski. Very uneventful. It ended a 2-fight winning streak where he started to gain some momentum. Neither man looked good, but obviously losing a fight where neither guy looks good is certainly a major setback. For Browne, though, he fought in the number 1 contenders bout in which he was favored in against Fabricio Verdum. He was badly outclassed both in the striking exchanges and on the mat. Lost that fight. Verdum went on to win the interim title, and certainly that's something Browne needs to recover from. Coming into that matchup, Browne had won 3 straight matchups, all in the first round and all over very noteworthy opponents, stopping Gabriel Gonzaga, Alistair Overeem, and then Josh Barnett. So pretty darn impressive, and unfortunately a big setback with the Verdum loss. Physically, Browne's going to be 3 inches taller than Schaub. He'll also have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he should come in 10 to 15 pounds heavier. For Schaub, he's a very big man, but for heavyweight, he doesn't seem enormous. He's not huge. Against Matt Mitrione, he looked a little undersized. I think he likes to rely on his speed, which certainly could be something he looks to take advantage of here. Now, both guys win the majority of their fights via knockout. Schaub has 7 wins by knockout, 3 in the UFC. Browne, 12 wins by knockout, 5 in the UFC. So both capable of knocking guys out, both capable of knocking guys out at this level. Browne has been KO'd once in his career. It was by Antonio Bigfoot Silva in an upset defeat. That's something that I predicted, but it was, it was followed up on a leg injury that Browne had suffered early in the fight that left him very vulnerable, and basically, he was a fish in a barrel, and still eventually landed that big shot that put him down. So certainly not, a loss without an asterisk next to it. For Brendan Schaub, he's been stopped 3 times in his career. He's well documented his chin issues. He's been stopped by Big Country Nelson. He's stopped by Big Nog, and he's stopped by Big Ben Rothwell. So the question is, can Hoppa Browne put him down as well and join that category? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Statistically, Schaub, 3.05 strikes landed per minute. Limits his opponents to just over 2, so just over 1 strike more, which is a pretty good exchange rate at heavyweight. But again, with Schaub's chin, you don't want to have, you want to get that down under 1.5 strikes landed per minute, I would think. For Browne, he actually gives up almost 1 strike more to his opponents than he was able to land, which is not a good exchange rate. But keep in mind, that number is inflated by 2 bouts, the Fabricio Verdum loss where he was outlanded 121 to 60, and the Alistair Overeem fight where he was outlanded 41 to 14 prior to winning that matchup. He was certainly in trouble when we saw him. For Browne, he throws a very open guard, and it's something I don't really like his striking technique. It allows him to get hit quite frequently, but obviously he feels that his chin can hold up when the situation presents itself. The big question here is, for Brendan Schaub, is he going to open up and engage in the feet, or is he going to be all focused on grappling? He seemed a little bit tentative in recent matchups to engage guys, and he's relied heavily on his ground game. He's a BJJ brown belt overall. His last 3 wins, he submitted Matt Mitrione, and he landed a total of 9 takedowns over LeVar Johnson, and going a little ways back, his third, against Mirko Cro Cop. Against Andrei Arlovski, he went 1 for 5 in the takedown department. Had he maybe landed 2, 3, 4 takedowns, he probably wins that fight, which was very close, I felt. The key to beating Travis Browne could be putting him on his back, if it's possible. Verdum took him down twice. Browne's cardio isn't awesome. If he can put him on his back, it could tax it, and we'll see how that plays out. But keep in mind, Browne is very hard to take off his feet. 85% takedown defense. He stopped both Gabriel Gonzaga and Josh Barnett, who are very accomplished grapplers, more so than Brendan Schaub. He stopped them mid-takedown, landing big elbows along the cage. So that's something Schaub's going to need to be very careful of if he does shoot in, if he can't get the initial takedown. Don't leave yourself in a vulnerable position. Browne needs a big bounce back, that's absolutely sure, if he's going to remain, as a future contender to challenge the title, which a lot of people think he will. leaves a lot to be desired with his striking technique, but I think he hits hard enough and has the advantage here over Brendan Schaub to keep him backing up. He'll use a lot of angles, a lot of movement. He'll keep Schaub off his game, force him to rely on his grappling, which I don't think will be successful. Schaub's chin is held up, or at least gone untested in his last 3 fights. That ends here. My prediction is Travis Browne to defeat Brendan Schaub by knockout. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's lightweight division for a title fight as the champion Anthony Showtime Pettis, with a record of 17 wins, 2 losses, and no draws, takes on the number 1 ranked Gilbert El Nino Melendez with a current record of 22 wins and 3 defeats. Now, taking a look here, Pettis is the favorite coming into this matchup at $1.47, while Melendez at $2.92 is the underdog. What we have, though, is the former WEC, the last WEC, and current UFC champion taking on the last Strikeforce champion. And keep in mind, this is the second opportunity for Gilbert Melendez to capture the UFC title. It's a different champion, but you want to make good on it. Certainly not the same as losing to a champion twice, but still do not pass up on multiple opportunities to get the title. Just ask Urijah Faber that. Now, one thing I want to talk about here, some people like to follow the linear championships. Anthony Pettis has, obviously, the UFC title. He also is the linear WEC and Strikeforce champion. If you look at it, he was the WEC champion, lost to Clay Guida in his debut. Guida lost to Benson Henderson, and then Pettis got it back from Benson Henderson when he captured the UFC title. For Gilbert Melendez, he was the Strikeforce champion, lost it to Benson Henderson, and Henderson lost the title to Anthony Pettis. So he currently holds 2 former major promotion titles along with the UFC's title, if you're looking from a linear perspective. Just get Eddie Alvarez, I guess Donald Cerrone from the linear perspective again, as the Bellator champion, and he could have all the major titles wrapped up in one, whoever comes out of this fight anyway. Now, coaches, these guys are the coaches on The Ultimate Fighter 20, which has been a fantastic season. Pettis' team has been running the show for the most part as of right now. I think Rose is the only fighter left representing Team Melendez. I guess Tisha Torres, who I think for some reason hasn't been put back on Gil's team, which she absolutely should be to help with the training scenarios. Nonetheless, Gil didn't win a lot on the show, or at least up to this point hasn't. He did win the trivia challenge, which was some money, but certainly not something. I know that with fragile Anthony Pettis, they didn't want to test his injury and give him an opportunity to hurt himself again. And on that same note, both guys have been on the shelf for a lengthy amount of time. Pettis has been out for 18 months. Gil hasn't fought in 14 months. Both guys, since 2011, have fought 5 times. But to put it in perspective, Anthony Pettis has fought 9 rounds approximately. Gilbert Melendez has fought 19 rounds. So he's certainly been more active in that same time span, even though the bell has rang for the opening round the same amount for both guys. Accreditation-wise, Melendez is the BJJ black belt under Cesar Gracie, training with Jake Shields, the Diaz brothers, so a very capable grappling camp to work out of there. For Pettis, a black belt in Taekwondo and kickboxing, a BJJ brown belt in yellow rope and capoeira. So a well-versed fighter in his own right. Basically, 1-inch height advantage for the champ and a 2-inch reach advantage. Now, both guys have great knockout numbers. Pettis, 8 known fights ended by knockout. Gilbert Melendez, 11 known fights ended by knockout. So both high finishing rates, having never been finished on the other end. Pettis also, very good submission number. 6 known fights ended by submission. For Gil, just 1 win by submission, but again, never been caught. Pettis, very creative and a very dangerous and unorthodox striker. He uses all his weapons exceptionally well. Has a very dangerous kicking arsenal, which is usually the key to his success. We saw him stop Donald Cerrone at the body kick. He took Joe Lozano with the head kick, and of course that Showtime kick that shut down or captured in the WBC title in the 5th round against Benson Henderson. All very impressive. Not a huge volume striker though. For all his skill, he doesn't put up a lot of volume. Just over 2 strikes landed per minute, while giving up almost 1.5. So certainly exchange rates not always in his favor, or at least not that clear cut. Since winning the WC title, he's never landed more than 21 significant strikes in a fight, but he showed us he can win a fight with 1. That's certainly true. For Melendez, he relies primarily on his boxing. Good exchange rate for him, landing 3.68, while only giving up just over 2, so a good number for him there. And he will throw down in brawls. We saw in a couple of the Josh Thompson matchups and against Diego Sanchez. He's not averse to that. I don't know if Pettis is the type will engage him in that type of fight, though. Both of his career losses, when you look at the numbers, have come against guys who put up high striking totals. Benson Henderson landed almost 70 significant strikes, and Thompson landed 100. So they were able to match his output, which was key to their success. Other than that, he has outlanded every Strikeforce, UFC, and WC opponent by a significant margin. For Pettis, he is the more diverse striker and more skilled striker, but Melendez's style and ability to be aggressive will negate, or has the ability to negate that. We've always talked about brawl that boxer, in this case, brawl the kickboxer. Don't allow him to set up and land those techniques and just keep on him. I think Gil's capable of that. Now, another stat, Melendez is 10-3 in fights that go to decision compared to Pettis, who is just 3-2. Gil's never been finished. That's very impressive. Neither guy's been finished. We did see him get hurt by Diego Sanchez, but certainly Melendez has the ability, as the numbers show, to win fights that go the distance. When you look at Pettis, he has a very good submission game, but he's been vulnerable to being taken down, and that's certainly an area of concern. He was taken down 5 times in his UFC debut and his loss to Clay Guida, 3 times in his split decision win over Jeremy Stevens, my apologies there. And he's certainly been working to improve his wrestling, but seems to be an area that guys focus on and can exploit. Gilbert Melendez, and here's some stats I'm going to throw you to try to keep up. Melendez 11-1 in fights where he lands 2 or more takedowns. That's very impressive. His only loss came back in 2007. He landed 3 takedowns. His opponent landed 7 and won a decision. It was a 2-round decision. So that's something to keep in mind there. He was also having a lot of success against Benson Henderson in his title fight, catching kicks, which I think he's going to try and do against Pettis, and scoring them, turning them into takedowns. I don't know if it's going to be as easy against Pettis. It probably won't be, but certainly look for him to try and catch some kicks, take Pettis off his feet. Pettis has won his last 3 fights in the first round, all very impressive stoppages. But he has given up 17 takedowns in his last 6 fights that have gone beyond that opening frame. So that's an average of 2.83 takedowns per fight. So that puts him in that range where Gil is able to take him down 2, maybe 3 times, where Gil is usually very difficult to defeat when he can meld his wrestling into his attack effectively. Melendez has never been finished, as I mentioned, so it's going to be difficult. I'm not saying Pettis can't finish him, I'm just saying he hasn't finished up until this time. He's gone through multiple wars. 7 times he has gone the distance 5 rounds compared to just once for Anthony Pettis, so it's certainly a notch in the challengers category. I think edges in both takedown and striking volume go to Gilbert Melendez. Those are huge. Pettis is flashy, he's very capable, but I think Melendez is a little bit more proven and capable of winning these wars if Pettis doesn't land something huge. And my prediction, I think you know where I'm going with this, is Gilbert Melendez to defeat Anthony Pettis. I'm going to take Gilbert Melendez to win the title by decision. We move now to the main event of the evening. It takes place in the UFC's welterweight division in the first title defense outside of George St. Pierre. In a long time anyway. Johny Hendricks, the reigning champion, with a record of 16-2-0, taking on the challenger and number 1 contender, the man he defeated to capture the title, ruthless Robbie Lawler, the current record of 24 wins, 10 losses, and 1 no contest. Now, their first meeting took place back at UFC 171 about 9 months ago. It was a unanimous decision win for Hendricks. He took all 3 cards with judges' cards with a score of 48-47, so it was a darn close fight. Hendricks did fight hurt in that matchup with a torn bicep, which is something he's had surgically repaired. He's kept him on the shelf, but keep that in mind as far as impact his ability to fight. Lawler, since Hendricks has been out, has fought twice, TKOing Jake Ellenberger and a very hard-fought decision victory over Matt Browne in his most recent matchup. So that's very noteworthy. Going back to their first fight, in that matchup, Hendricks won rounds 1, 2, and the deciding round would turn out to be round 5. 3 and 4 went to Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler appeared to do the most damage, had Hendricks hurt, had him backing up, so that's worth considering in this fight. Now, Hendricks in that fight started with a lot of low kicks, and that's something that caught Robbie off guard. Robbie was primarily using his hands, and Hendricks was using a lot of low kicks, probably because he kept in mind his injury, but it certainly was a good move on his part and paid dividends. Lawler in that fight was the idea of Hendricks using his wrestling. He stuffed the early takedowns. The first successful takedown didn't actually take place until late in the 4th round, and of course the clincher in the 5th round to put Lawler on his back. Both guys spent the majority of the matchup contesting it at close range. They weren't circling out and looking for opportunities to close it as an attack. They stayed close, they swung, they landed. It was a very entertaining fight as a result. Now, Hendricks was the more diverse striker, which caught a lot of people off guard, including myself. I picked Robbie Lawler to win that first matchup. He was throwing some nice combinations, not all power shots, which we've become very accustomed to. They were still doing damage, but he was being very effective. He kept Robbie Lawler backing up. Robbie, though, was blocking a lot of those strikes and rolling with the punches and absorbing them. But the thing is, they were still landing where he wasn't returning fire as frequently as he needed to be, and the judges were seeing the impact, or at least the possible impact, and giving those rounds to Johny Hendricks. What we did see from Lawler is a very nice jab, and he tends to throw it a lot. He has an excellent right hook and a very strong overhand left. Those are his weapons, primary weapons of choice with his hands. He also throws some good leg kicks. That's when we started seeing him have success, was in round 3 when he opened up with his leg kicks. He started throwing them, giving Johny Hendricks something else to think about, targeting his, the lower half of his body. It opened up opportunities for him to land with his hands, and he certainly did that. Hendricks was hurt with a big shot in round 3, was in trouble. He also got clipped with a knee in the clinch. He again was hurt in round 4. I thought he was headed towards being finished, and at the very least I thought the door was open for Lawler if he could land some big shots early in round 5 to take the belt, take the title, and take that matchup. The late takedown obviously gave Hendricks the win. For Robbie Lawler, since then, it's hard to talk about Hendricks because we haven't seen him. For Robbie Lawler, though, he used a lot more movement in the matchup against Jake Ellenberger, and he used that brutal left kick. He threw a lot of kicks, both to the midsection and the head kick, and that opens up opportunities when your opponent knows they have to watch more than just your hands. And I expect to see that a little bit in this fight. He also used a lot of counter striking against Matt Browne. Every time Browne came in, pop, 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 Lawler was catching him, and that's something. If he can do that and keep Johny Hendricks from unloading on him, that's something that's going to negate what Hendricks was doing in the last fight. Robbie won a tough battle, you go back to this last two matchups, Robbie looked incredibly loose. In the first fight against Hendricks, he was very stiff, where Johny was loose and flowing and looked very good early on. I expect to see a much more confident and relaxed Robbie Lawler, and that'll make him a more effective striker. Keep in mind here, Hendricks still has the wrestling advantage. There's no denying that. Robbie is very difficult to keep down, but I think Johny Hendricks has the ability to put him on the mat and control him there. That's something to keep an eye on here. I wouldn't be shocked to see Hendricks come out and mix it up and look for takedowns early in this matchup to keep Robbie Lawler from settling in. We'll see if he can get back up as he did against Jake Ellenberger and other guys that have taken him down in the past. Lawler needs to be more diverse, not allow Hendricks to push the pace, not allow him to unload those combinations and simply absorb them or try to avoid them. He needs to be more diverse, more aggressive. I think he will do that. Hendricks looked very good, the best he's ever looked in that matchup when he beat Robbie Lawler, better than he looked against when he fought GSP. Robbie Lawler did not look as good as we've seen him. He's looked better since. He's looked more diverse as a striker, more capable, more smooth, more aggressive. I've really liked what I've seen from Robbie Lawler of late. One thing to keep in mind, Lawler, that fight with Hendricks was kind of his fight, like we saw Hendricks fight against George St. Pierre. I expect to see him come out confident, and I've done this before, I can do this again. I think we'll see a better Robbie Lawler here. And for Johny Hendricks, that ring rust could be a factor. If he gets off to a slow start, those early rounds that he rode to basically winning the final round to take the title won't be there on the scorecards if we do go to the scorecards, which I don't know if that's going to actually happen here. Look for Lawler to use more kicks. Open up with low kicks, body kicks, eventually open up some head kicks. It's going to keep Hendricks backing up. He'll have more confidence if his takedown defense holds up like it has in the past. Lawler will be more diverse, more aggressive. That's a key for him. Now, rematches that follow epic first encounters tend to end very quickly. Maybe disappointing. Maybe guys just learn and see more things and have that extra knowledge of having actually been in there with their opponent that they're able to pick something out. You think you've got Anthony Pettis versus Ben Henderson, Shogun versus Dan Henderson, Shogun versus Lyoto Machida, Chael Sonnen against Anderson Silva. You go back to WEC, Donald Cerrone versus Ben Henderson too. They all end very quickly, and especially usually inside the first half. I think we see something here. I think Robbie Lawler's going to land a hard body kick, eventually open up some head kick opportunities. And my prediction, I'm going to do it, is Robbie Lawler, I'm going to stick with him. I pick Robbie Lawler to defeat Johny Hendricks by knockout, become the new UFC welterweight champion. Those are my 5 main card predictions for the upcoming UFC 181 event. Yes, I'm taking 2 champions to fall. Obviously, it could be difficult to see that happening, but I see a lot of avenues where both challengers can get the job done. If it does happen, you know where you heard it first here at Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Please consider buying my bet packs. Again, I hammered a big trend that I've discovered and researched with the last card. I'm going to be predicting again. I see another opportunity for it to land. I'll tell you in the bet packs if I actually think it's worth putting money on, but I certainly see some potential for it. There's a couple of trends here that could play out as well. One trend I actually could be going against. I'll talk about that one in the bet packs. But I'm very excited for this card, so certainly head over to kamikazeoverdrive.net, buy the bet packs, vote in the polls, check out the prediction panel. I always appreciate you guys tuning in, and hopefully you like the studio. Let me know what you think. As always, thank you very much for watching.